Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Workplace bullying. It's a phrase we hear all the time, right? But honestly, how often do we actually unpack the hidden realities of what it means day to day? Well, today, we're taking a magnifying glass to this issue. We're going to expose the invisible threats that exist in modern offices, and, even more importantly, we're going to outline the exact prescription needed to cure them.
So, when I ask, what does workplace bullying actually look like, what immediately pops into your head? A boss just screaming across a boardroom? Someone throwing a stack of papers at an intern? Well, prepare to have your expectations subverted. Because real workplace bullying, it's rarely that dramatic, movie-style shouting match. Instead, it's insidious. It's made up of subtle, invisible threats that just slowly erode an employee's confidence and security. It lives in the quiet corners of the office, and because it's so quiet, it often goes completely unnoticed by HR until the damage is already done. And that is exactly what we're going to expose today.
Section 1. Spotting the early signs, diagnosing the organizational illness.
To truly understand this, we kind of need to look at a toxic workplace as an organizational illness. And, just like any medical illness, before you can hope to cure it, you've got to know how to diagnose the early symptoms. The bullying doesn't usually start with some grand gesture. It starts small, sort of creeping in. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is these 4 early warning signs: social exclusion, micromanagement, unfair task assignment, and property sabotage. On their own, isolated, you might just dismiss one of these as a bad day or, a quirky manager. But together, they actually form strict diagnostic criteria for bullying. Let's break these down one by one to see exactly how they function.
First up is social exclusion. And let's be clear, this isn't just about someone accidentally getting left off an email chain for the weekend barbecue. No, this is deeply deliberate. According to our source material, this happens when coworkers intentionally ignore a specific employee or deliberately exclude them from office social gatherings. But you want to know the most chilling detail from the data? It's when a bustling room goes suddenly completely quiet, or people literally pack up and leave the moment the targeted employee enters. It's this calculated, silent freezing out, and it creates a profoundly devastating sense of professional isolation. Next, we have micromanagement. Look, we've all had bosses who check in a bit too often, sure, but there is a stark contrast between healthy supervision and this toxic trait. Toxic micromanagement involves managers or seniors subjecting an employee to excessive scrutiny, unnecessary meetings, and just unusual levels of supervision. But pay close attention to the end of that sentence. The absolute key indicator of this bullying tactic is the complete lack of a valid reason for the scrutiny. It's control purely for the sake of control, designed specifically to make the victim second-guess their every single move.
Then there's unfair task assignment. This happens when an employee is suddenly assigned duties way outside their normal purview without getting any adequate training to handle them. Or, on the flip side, they're handed overly challenging yet completely meaningless tasks. Guys, this is an incredibly insidious trap. The sole purpose here isn't to get productive work done. No way. It's designed specifically to set the employee up for failure so they face criticism and ridicule when they inevitably struggle. It systematically destroys their professional self-esteem.
And finally, the 4th symptom, property sabotage. I want you to take a second and just imagine your own files mysteriously disappearing right before a massive deadline, or your personal belongings vanishing from your desk. I mean, it sounds crazy, right? Maybe even like a petty office prank over a stolen stapler. But the source actually highlights this as a noticeable trend in hostile environments. It's a calculated psychological tactic intended to make the target feel completely off balance, frustrated, and deeply insecure in their own workspace.
Section 2. The management commitment. Implementing the cure.
Okay, so we've identified the illness. We know the symptoms, the quiet rooms, the impossible traps, the missing files. Now, we've got to pivot our focus from diagnosing the problem to prescribing the organizational cure. Because, let's face it, identifying the bullying is only half the battle. Eradicating it is where the real work begins. So the crucial point is this central thesis drawn directly from the source material. The most crucial element in mitigating these issues is strong management commitment. The takeaway here, you can't just slap a nice-sounding poster on the break room wall and expect the culture to magically change. Mitigation requires real action. It requires a comprehensive, formal policy against bullying and harassment. And management has to truly, visibly own it.
And how exactly do they own it? Well, by implementing these specific measures. Here is your 6-step organizational playbook. Collaborative development, universal application, clear definitions, structured resolution procedures, sensitization and training, and regular review.
We're going to walk through each one of these steps right now to show you exactly how to build a definitive defensive shield against toxic behavior.
Step 1. Collaborative development. You know, a top-down mandate rarely works when you're trying to fundamentally change a culture. Instead, the policy must jointly be developed by both management and employee representatives. This is absolutely necessary because mutual agreement ensures real commitment to the implementation of the policy from everyone involved. It becomes an open, shared community rulebook, not just some executive order forced upon the team.
Step 2. Universal application. These rules must apply equally to all stakeholders within the company. I mean, think about it. A policy is completely useless if your top-performing salesperson or the CEO is miraculously exempt from it, right? Universal application is entirely non-negotiable. If you want the cure to work, no one gets a free pass to create a hostile environment. Absolutely no one is above the policy.
Step 3. Clear definitions. You see, ambiguity protects bad behavior. Bullies absolutely thrive in gray areas where they can just claim, oh, it was just a joke, or that's just my management style. And that is exactly why the policy must clearly define what constitutes workplace bullying. It needs to provide an exhaustively explicit list of unacceptable behaviors and working conditions. When the line is drawn clearly in black and white, everyone knows for sure when it's been crossed.
Step 4. Structured resolution procedures. So if an employee is targeted, what exactly do they do? And this brilliantly illustrates why there must be clear-cut formal procedures for safely investigating and resolving any complaints that are reported. Now, the word safely is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Fear of retaliation is actually the #1 reason workplace bullying goes unreported. You absolutely need a structured way to handle reports so victims feel completely secure and protected from retaliation when they bravely come forward.
Step 5. Sensitization and training. Look, you can't just write a great policy, you have to actively teach it. Organizations must commit to organizing training programs at various levels. The whole goal is to build deep awareness quickly, ensuring the entire workforce knows exactly what bullying looks like, like those early signs we discussed earlier, and exactly what actions to take if an incident occurs. You've simply got to equip your workforce with the right tools. And finally, Step 6. Regular review. An anti-bullying policy cannot just be some dusty binder sitting on an HR shelf. It has to be a living document. The policies and preventative measures must be regularly monitored and reviewed to ensure they actually remain effective and relevant to the changing dynamics of the workplace. You have to continuously check the pulse of the organization to make absolutely sure the cure is working. So, we've covered the hidden, creeping symptoms of bullying, and we've laid out the comprehensive 6-step cure to stop it. Which brings us to this provocative final thought. I want you to critically examine your own workplace culture. Look for the missing files, notice the excessively quiet rooms, and check your own policies. Ask yourself, is your workplace truly safe, or is it just quiet? Think about that. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.